All right, let's move on to the Texas Rangers, and we will start off with their very old starting rotation. As we kind of mentioned with the Seattle Mariners, the Rangers definitely are old at that. You got Cole Hamels, not the Cole Hamels of old, entering his age 34 season. He's a workhorse, can get it done for you, but not quite the guy we expected. They traded for Matt Moore, who's only 29, but he couldn't get it done in San Francisco. So not exactly sure what Arlington is going to do for him. When you look at the likes of Mike Minor, who we talked about before they made this move, makes a great reliever. They put him back in the rotation. He's 30 years old. Then they signed Doug Fister, 34 years old. You saw him in Boston. Had about a good month stretch there, but we know who Doug Fister is, and he's not the guy you want in Arlington full time. And then some other head scratchers. You got Matt Bush making a move from the bullpen to the rotation, hard throwing reliever we thought could be a closer at one time. He's 32. They signed Bartolo Colon, who's going to be 45, to a minor league deal with a chance to start. And they also signed Big Timmy, who's going to be 34, to a major league deal. Some say he could be a back-end pitcher. Most say he's going to be in the rotation. They are talking about a six-man rotation when it comes to Texas, which will help with this mess of a rotation. It's just ugly to me. And this team, they have a very small window. The offense is okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this pitching staff, your offense might have to – it's going to be like a slow-pitch softball game at times. So this is a massive concern for me, this Rangers team, and it makes me really suspect on how they're going to finish this season.
Yeah, Hamels doesn't have much left. The other three guys, Matt Moore, Minor, Fister, I would have had Minor in the bullpen, to be honest with you. He could be maybe the best one out of the three if he can figure it out as he stretches it out. Matt Bush, he screams Daniel Bard to me. I mean, he just really does. And for those of you who don't remember Daniel Bard, he was a tremendous setup man for the Red Sox. He wanted to move to the rotation. He did, had about a month or two of success, and now he's out of the league. So there's a lot of similarities there. Hey, Big Sexy's there too. Don't forget about him. And yeah, rotation does not scream good to me.
No, not at all. But some of the goods that they do have is last year when they traded Yu Darvish to the Dodgers, they in return got a big-time prospect, a big-time bat, and Willie Calhoun to come over and, spent the time in the minors last year, but everybody was waiting for this day, and he looks like he'll be starting out with the team. Always a defensive liability. He was once a second baseman. We figured he'd DH. Roster Resource has him batting eighth, playing left field. Not sure Willie Calhoun in left field is the greatest idea in the world. That's kind of terrifying to me, to be honest, but maybe that's where we roll with this. In his short time with the Rangers last year in the Bigs, 13 games, he hit 265 with a homer and 4 ribbies, so nothing too crazy there, but his minor league numbers are just insane. He's only 22 years old, so he played in AAA last year, AA in 16, and 3 levels of from rookie ball to high A in 2015, and the power was there. This can't be right. In 2017, between AAA, he had 62 homers. Baseball Reference must be drunk. It can't be right.
But keep talking, I'll look.
Yeah, that's insane. 2016, though, he had 27. 2015, he had 11. Yeah, Baseball Reference is drunk. 186 RBIs, not possible. But the batting average is legit. He is a power machine, so he'll be a nice addition to that team. Much needed. So one of the big storylines, this is how kind of sad I am about the Rangers this year. Their number 2 storyline for me is we get to see Willie Calhoun. Hopefully nothing stopping him from everyday playing time on an everyday basis, and he is their top prospect at the moment. So Willie Calhoun is number 2 for me.
Yeah, you just look quickly. When they have a couple teams together, they kind of combine them together. So I think you put the 2 teams along with – you double counted it a little bit. But 62 home runs would have been tremendous this season. It really would have been.
That's what it has here. I'm lost, but yeah.
Yeah, there's not much to add there. I mean, Willie Calhoun, clearly the Dodgers had to get rid of him if they were going to get rid of Darvish. I don't think they were going to trade, Alvarez or Walker Buehler, just because Willie Calhoun really doesn't have a position in the NL. And in the AL, eventually, hopefully, he'll be their DH. But for now, they got to kind of force him in the outfield. And, Shin Shu-Chu's getting older as it is, along with a few other guys on that team. So they're just kind of going to wiggle it around a little bit. But the kid's bat is no joke. I mean, especially in Dallas, in that ballpark, in the heat of the summer, whew, that ball could fly out of there a lot of times, just like the next guy you're going to talk about.
Yes, and this is the other part that makes the team very exciting because I mentioned how old their pitching staff is, which it is rather old. And you have the likes of Adrian Beltre, he's going to be 39. Shin-Soo Choo is going to be 36. Robinson Chirinos is even going to be 34. And he didn't really come on the scene until last year. But they do have some youngsters. They have Calhoun, Delano DeShields Jr., who's young. They have Nomar Mazar, who's going to be 23. He's a stud. Elvis Andrus turned 30 this year. Two names I want to talk about, though. One put on a light tower show, and hopefully he's in the home run derby this year, because that was probably one of our more disappointing factors of that weekend for us, is Joey Gallo. Finally got everyday at-bats, played 145 games, 532 plate appearances, 449 at-bats, and he hit 41 bombs, and bombs might be an understatement because he hit some absolute moonshots. Strikeouts are always a concern with Gallo. He hit 209. We all know he's not going to hit for average. He is the epitome of Adam Dunn. If somehow Joey Gallo can hit 230 to 240, somewhere in that range, he's deadly. He'll hit 50-plus homers. This guy is awesome, and he's a big factor in what the Rangers season will be like. He's going to be batting in the middle of that order. He's projected to bat fifth, play first base every day. Lots to like there. The guy projected to bat sixth right behind him is 24 years old. He plays second base. His name is Rougned Odor, and he had one of the worst seasons in baseball last year. Absolutely horrible. And they need a massive bounce back from him if they want to contend. We're talking about a guy that hit 204, worse than Joey Gallo, but still hit 30 homers, 75 RBI, stole 15 bases. The talent level is tremendous with this guy. He played every game, 162 games. So he needs to get back to, in 2016 at 271, 15, 261, 14, 259. There was a lot more strikeouts, almost 30 more strikeouts last year. I think he's going to improve. I think there's a big bounce-back candidate for them. And if he can improve on that batting average, the power is legit can be, back-to-back 30-plus home run seasons. Match him up with Gallo, hopefully a healthy Adrian Beltre. Nomar Mazara should take the next step. There's a lot to like with this offense. Like I said, they're going to need it with that pitching staff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about Gallo. I can't really add anything to that. I mean, he is what he is. Obviously, he can. There's a possibility he could hit more homers. I mean, there really is. In terms of Odor, it was really interesting. I mean, obviously the BABIP was way down 224, so he's going to improve a little bit. He's not a 204 hitter, but I'm not sure he's a 280 hitter either. He might be somewhere in between. There are some interesting, numbers here. The swinging strike rate all the way up to 13% now. His contact percentage is way down to 75%, and his zone contact, as is continued to dwindle over the last few years from 91 to 88 to 85. So he continues to not, create as much contact as he used to. And that's sort of a big thing for him that got him up to that 280 average. So I do think he's not as bad as last year, but, I'm not sure he's a 280 hitter. But like you said, 30 and 15 is nothing to joke about. And that's something you can get him late. So could be a flyer in fantasy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for the Rangers. Our last team is the Oakland Athletics, 75 and 87. The over-under for them is 74.5. I think the first thing I have, and we've talked, to a few guys out there, sneaky good bullpen in my opinion. Billy Beans started to build that bullpen on the fly. He had Sean Doolittle, who got hurt a lot and had a good first half of the season, and then he signed Ryan Madsen when he was hurt. And he sort of parlayed them into Blake Trinan and a couple other guys. And Blake Trinan was fine last year, and he's going to be their closer going into next year. He ended up signing Yusmeiro Petit, who was solid with the Angels. Traded for Chris Hatcher last year, who had a great September with them. Had traded for Ryan Buchter in this offseason, and then signed Pagan as well. So that's a sneaky, solid top five for him. And they're not ready to win now for a couple years. Obviously, not for a couple of years, especially if that stadium doesn't get done. Then they're in big trouble. But this is what Billy Beane does. He trades for potential. Bullpen are always needed at deadlines for everyone, and now he's got a ton of trade chips if needed. in that bullpen that he's built sort of on the fly, like I said at the beginning of it.
Yeah, no, this is Billy Beane to a T. I love the Trinan move. It was much better when he finished the year with the A's coming over from the Nationals, and you mentioned some of those other names like Buchter and Hatcher and Petit. The Pagan move from Seattle could be interesting. He still has Santiago Casilla back there, who did some late inning work for them last season. So, yeah, and the biggest thing is you hit it on the head. These are trade chips for the middle of the season if something goes wrong with the A's, and it's Billy Beane to a T.
Yeah, my second point here is really just the power in their offense. I mean, in that ballpark, it's a huge ballpark, a lot of foul ground, obviously, but a big ballpark otherwise, a large outfield. They were fourth in homers in the full season, and then tied for first with the Yankees in the second half, led by Crush Davis and the amazing couple months of Matt Olson, and that allowed them. Him and Matt Chapman allowed them to trade Ryan Healy, for Pagan and a couple other guys. So they also have Franklin Barreto, who's sort of the main guy that they have to try and salvage from that Donaldson trade that they made. I know they have Graveman still too, but Franklin Barreto was the main piece there. They thought he was really going to be stud in a couple of years, and he hasn't been great in his short cup of coffee. And they obviously traded for Fowler and Mateo, and they're close as well. So there isn't a take here per se, but they're one of the best power offenses in baseball. And I know home runs are everywhere now, but with the collection of guys you had, if you sort of put them on paper next to different teams, you wouldn't think that they would hit as many home runs as some of these teams. And they have so much potential there. And they got added Piscotty as well. They could have 6 or 7 guys that hit 20 homers. I mean, which is pretty awesome. And it makes them watchable, at least late night for me, and probably side to side with you, with San Francisco.
Yeah, I was about to say, this offense alone makes me be willing to tune into A's games because I enjoy Marcus Semien. He's a good ball player, but you hit on guys, Chris Davis, Matt Olson, and Matt Chapman. I can watch every one of their at-bats because it may end in a strikeout or it could end in like a 480-foot home run. These guys have insane power. I remember watching some of their games, and Chris Davis hits like a walk-off grand slam, and you got Chapman dropping bombs. And, of course, the 2 months or whatever of Olson, like you mentioned, was just awesome to watch. And you mentioned there's guys like Fowler and others that we're going to see this season. Fowler for Ross Resource doesn't have him starting, but everywhere else you talk to, he's supposed to be like they've projected him as their leadoff hitter once he's up early. So he's going to be big. They got Sheldon Noose, who's a little bit of ways, but he's an absolute monster when it comes to hitting. Franklin Barreto is a massive question. I agree completely with that. Ross Resource has him starting the year on AAA. I think they got to get this guy up there. I don't know where you put him because you got Chapman at third, Semien at short, and Lowry at second. I like all those guys in those positions. They're not replaceable for what you got from Barreto. So maybe you keep him down there and you keep the ownership going where it's going and see what you have until you move maybe Chris Davis to the outfield, get rid of Boog Powell. There's a lot of things they can move around. But it's a nice luxury to have. So there are some definite weapons in this offense. And I like where the A's offense is going. As long as they can get the pitching to go with it, they can be sneaky competitive, not maybe postseason. But the way I feel about the A's right now is almost how I felt about the Rays last year.
Interesting for sure. And I do think that this is the year they trade Jed Lowry at the deadline. They had a lot of value last year, but his contract is just so team friendly that it didn't make sense last year. But I do think this is the year they'll trade him and open up a spot for Barreto. They have to see what he has. I mean, unless they're in a wild card hunt, which I don't see, then you have to see what you have in Barreto. The last one is, when do we see AJ Puck? And the reason why I say that is the current rotation has not done as well as Billy Beane has expected, with the likes of Cotton, Minaya, and Graveman, all pitching below average for the most part. I mean, Minaya has the most potential out of them, in my opinion, and he's shown some signs. But they have to hope he figures it out sooner or later, because this is sort of the rotation that they really – and I guess rotation is the wrong word because we're talking about the rotation. But in terms of how they build their teams, they always have that one or two – the guys that come up and then they trade them for chips, a la Sonny Gray lately, obviously way back when with Hudson, Zito, and Mulder, they always end up trading those guys. And they haven't had that guy outside of Sonny Gray, and they don't have that guy now, except for AJ Puck, who they hope to get there as soon as possible. He was in Double-A. He was in High A and Double-A last year. He got about 13, 14 starts in Double-A. You got to think he starts there this year. And then I believe AAA is out near you, right? Is that true?
It's in Nashville.
Oh, they're in Nashville?
They used to be in Sacramento about 4 years ago. They moved to Nashville.
Yeah, I don't get that whole thing. Like
that makes no sense. It makes no sense.
The Mets are in Las Vegas. It makes zero sense. I know the Mets are going to Buffalo or something coming up, but that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about them in a couple episodes. They need AJ Puck to come up, and they need him to be very, very good to really solidify, what they're trying to build and the potential that some of their guys do have. He's really, really a big part of that. And yeah, I think the main point here, they need him, and they need him soon. I think we'll see him. My guess is after the All-Star break. I don't think they're going to rush him, and there's no need to rush him.
And that's the biggest part is, yes, they need him. Yes, they need him soon. But if they're not contending, you don't rush him. You keep the it's so weird because we always talk about with young pitchers, use the bullets while you have them because so many of them get hurt. So you don't want them just sitting in the minors But the A's are that kind of team that they need every year of control they can get. So it's really weird to see how they play that, but he is amazing. I remember watching him in Stockton. And when Stockton came to San Jose, that's their single-A team. He was amazing there. It's just weird because you got Kendall Graven's their ace, Sean Manaea, then Mingden, who they're up and down on. He had signs of really good stuff, signs of just headaches. Then Triggs and Blackburn are nothing special. You mentioned Jarrell Cotton, who I think could be better this year, but still not what they want him to be. Daniel Gossett's a guy they were kind of high on. He hasn't been much. They have a lot of pitchers that are a ways away also. Logan Shore is going to start out with Puck. James Caprillion coming off of Tommy John. They got the Sonny Gray deal. He's going to start around single A in Stockton. Jesus Luzardo, low A. So Puck's, like you said, all they have, and they need to figure out what they have with the rest of that rotation because after they lost Sonny Gray, there's really nothing special there. So bring him up, but don't bring him up. I don't even know how to say it probably without just saying don't waste him just by bringing him up type thing. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would guess that if he starts off fast at AA, they'll move him to AAA, see what he's got. And again, if he dominates there, I just don't think Billy Beane will have a choice. And probably, I think the earliest you'll see him is after that Super 2 date, like in June. I think that's the earliest you'll see him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't make it to the bigs, he'll spend at least half the season or more in AAA. I don't see him in AA very long, unless something weird happens.
Yeah, I agree. Let's do the standings predictions. I'll go first, Bubba. I think we'll almost be the same. I've obviously got Houston winning it. I've got LA second. I've got Seattle third. I've got Oakland fourth and Texas fifth.
I have the Astros, the Angels, then the A's, then the Mariners, then the Rangers. I just don't trust the Mariners at all. It's just bad.
I don't either, but I don't know. I just can't. I can't put the A's that high this year. I mean, maybe their offense will carry them in a couple, and Manaea will figure it out, and then the bullpen will be as good as we thought. But them in Texas, you could flip them. Texas is my new Baltimore. I think that's really what it is.
I agree. Doing their three topics, it was not easy. Like, as you could tell, the three topics I did, it was pretty boring. It was nothing special at all there.
Yeah, and even same with the A's for me. Like, it was I told everyone that they have a lot of power. So that's a lot of hot takes there. Okay, put me next to Skip Bayless. Let's do it.
There you go. The PECOTA rankings updated on March 4th. Astros 99 and 63. In second place are the Mariners at 82 and 80. So the Astros have a 17-game lead on second place by PECOTA.
Yeah.
Then you have the Angels at 80 and 82, and then the A's and Rangers are tied for fourth and fifth at 76 and 86.
The Angels are weird.
80 and 82. That surprises they must really be down on the pitching. That's my only guess.
But PECOTA's telling me is they improved during the offseason, but are going to be the same record. So they're telling me they overachieved last year. I don't know. I think they win at least 87, 88 games minimum.
They're contending for a wild card, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, let's move on to the National League West. We kick it off with the defending National League champions. God, that hurts to say. The Los Angeles Dodgers, and I do respect the crap out of their team. They're a damn good ball club. And when I started looking at their roster, it's terrifying that it's almost the same thing. And my first topic is similar to your Astros thing, is, the repeat type deal. can the Dodgers finish what they started? They've been making this inching through the postseason year after year. They finally get to the big dance. They go to Game 7, and they just can't do it. And what I love about their team, God, again, that hurts to say, is they are basically the same team as they were last year, which is darn good. Basically the best team in baseball outside of the Astros. And you got Chris Taylor, Corey Seager, Turner, Bellinger hitting cleanup, Puig, Grandal, Peterson, Forsythe. That's their 1-8 projected right now with a solid bench. And then it comes down to that pitching, which is this lights out. You got Kershaw, Rich Hill, who's still very good. Wood's a question mark to me. Kenta Maeda back in the rotation. Hung-Jin Ryu. So the bottom three are question marks to me. But we know how they like to use the DL, which we'll get into. And the big question is, can their bullpen get it done? And that's been a problem I've had with theirs every year. I'm pretty sure I had the same conversation last season. We previewed these guys. Kenley Jansen, okay, we don't have to talk about him. The best at the moment. But then Pedro Baez, Scott Alexander, don't even know who that is. Josh Fields, Tony Cingrani, Ross Stripling, Adam Liberatore, and then Wilmer Font, a youngster who's actually pretty good. That's not exactly the ideal bullpen you're looking for, especially with a staff that doesn't usually go deep in games until late second half of the season. So we're going to see how they shuffle this rotation around yet again, and that's going to be their bugaboos, their pitching. But that offense still looks very, very strong, and I have them as a favorite in the National League. Them and probably the Nationals when we go and break down the East are definitely running away with the National League at the moment, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, there's not much to add there. I'm waiting for them to call up Walker Buehler and move Maeda to the bullpen again, because he did have some success there in the second half of last year.
Yeah, he was very, very good in the bullpen. So I'd have Maeda there instead of Baez being a setup man. He was that good out of the pen. We look to health, and that's kind of where I was going with things. Is I already mentioned the health of the starting rotation. We talked about how they utilize the 10-day DL like no one's business. And I've mentioned it in our starting pitcher breakdown. I've mentioned it on other parts about Kershaw. I am not sold on him with that back problem. That's 2 straight years now, and that is a concern. When he's healthy, he is definitely one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. No question there. But that health is a concern. Rich Hill, very good year last year, so I can almost not talk as much trash as normal, but he still had some injury issues. Alex Wood, no hiding that. Ryu coming off an injury. Already mentioned all those. We know the pitching problems. What concerns me, though, is Corey Seager's already banged up again. And we dealt with that last year. He was still very productive, but it's just a trend you don't like to see. Justin Turner had an injury last year. It held him out for a while. And then you got an old Logan Forsythe at second base. Now maybe you put Austin Barnes out there because Austin Barnes is already hurt, so he can't really catch that much. You got an old Chase Utley on the bench and an old Matt Kemp on the bench. Injuries could hurt this team. Now they have pieces to trade if they need to, but unlike the Astros, which had so much depth and so much youth, the Dodgers are getting older and they have a lot more injury concerns, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I mean, in one fell swoop, you could have Clayton Kershaw on the DL for quite a long time with his back injury, and Rich Hill's almost 38 years old. He could have blister issues, and that's just the minor things that he could have. I know he doesn't have as much wear and tear on his arm as other 38-year-olds, but there's that there. Ryu obviously is always hurt. Alex Wood, is he the first half Alex Wood? Is he the second half, or is he in between? The Dodgers better hope he's in between, because if he's the second half, then that's a problem too, and he's had his own injury problems in the past. So you're absolutely right, and I'm not so much worried about Seager because I know he's already beat up now. I mean, he's still 23, 24 years old, so you have to hope that he's not as old as Kershaw, so he'll figure that back problem out, be able to play through it a little bit, if you will. But yeah, definitely that rotation is a little scary in terms of health, and they can't do the 10-day DL stints that they did last year because they got rid of Kazmir and they got rid of McCarthy and whoever else they had. So they can't pull that off again. And that's a question for this team, especially where the Giants are back. We'll get into them later. So you've got 4 legit teams that are going to beat each other up, and even the Padres with everything they got going on there with their young guys. So, yeah, a lot of question marks in that rotation with the Dodgers.
Yeah, definitely. And that leads me to my last point is a question mark that some have, some shouldn't have, in my opinion, but it's Cody Bellinger. Going into his sophomore season, NL Rookie of the Year. He was a monster. Great season. Nothing really to talk about there, but he did kind of die off in the postseason. In the second half in general, he was still good, but you saw the power numbers decrease. Only 14 homers in the second half compared to 25 in the first half. The strikeout rates went up quite a bit, as many have talked about. So the swinging strike rate definitely went up as well. And that's just a concern that could be valid. He's young. He's still adjusting. I'm not worried about him, though. I think the power is tremendous hitting in that lineup where he's going to be hitting fourth right now behind Justin Turner and in front of Puig. I think he's still going to be very good, but it'll be interesting to see how the sophomore season of Cody goes, how he adjusts to pitchers as they keep adjusting to him. And if he does struggle, it will hurt this team a lot because they still have a lot of talent, as I mentioned. But, Puig had a great year. Is he going to have another great year? I think so, but we'll see. But after that, you got Grandal, who's good, but he's a liability at times. Jock Peterson can't figure it out right now. And Forsythe, he's good, but I don't think he's quite the guy we once thought he was. So they need Cody to be Cody, and if he is, they'll be just fine.
Yeah, there's not much to add. He's a 30-100 guy. I mean, there's going to be times this season where he's going to struggle, just like he did last season. And he struggled in the playoffs. I don't want to see anyone say that he struggled in the playoffs. So, that he's a bust. He's not going to be great. It was overrated. It was just a flash in the pan. Don't do that. He's going to be fine. He's a 30-100 guy. He should be drafted where he's getting drafted. He's got a chance to maybe steal a few bases as well. So the kid is a stud, and he's going to be a stud for years to come.
Yep.
Next team, second place last year, Arizona Diamondbacks. Surprise to all, 93-69, 85.5 over-under in wins. Couple things here. The first one is the humidor question. They're adding a humidor. They did it in Colorado a few years back. And there are data that suggest the offense will severely suffer, may help the pitching a bit. And that happened in Coors. It's really a wait-and-see approach to me. There's not much to this topic. You can't – I see like Goldschmidt dropping out of the first round in some drafts. That's crazy. You got to draft that guy. You can't – maybe Jake Lamb, you say, okay, maybe I'm not going to draft this guy anymore because it's really just power and that's it. And he had that crazy first half and regressed to where we thought he was going to regress to. So I'm not worried about the humidor yet. We'll see, in the first month what the data brings us. I know that Derek Carty and a few other guys say they can predict what's going to happen and, based off of cores and whatnot, maybe you can. But in my opinion, I'm going to use a wait-and-see approach until the real data comes out.
Yeah, I think that's all you can do is wait and see. There's so many numbers you can put into play, but to me, roof open, roof closed, there's so many factors to it. I think they'll still, like you said, Goldie is going to be Goldie. Don't let that change your mind. And maybe you bump the pitchers a little bit. I can understand that. But I think they're still going to score a ton of runs. And we'll see. Maybe it is a drastic change, and it's something to be concerned about in the future. But wait and see is the way to go.
Yeah, my second point here is how will they use Archie Bradley? We all know Fernando Rodney. It looked like, last year after April they were going to replace him. But my guy, Torey Lovullo, he was very patient with him and basically got rewarded by being patient because he had a tremendous second half of the season, really from May on. It really wasn't just the second half. It was May on to the end of the season. So now they have a void, and I think everyone thought that Archie Bradley, clear, easy closer, fit right in there. He did so well on the bullpen. There was rumblings that maybe he wants to go back to rotation. Don't do that. Stay in the bullpen. You're great. Then they traded for Brad Boxberger. He's got some experience with the Rays closing, so maybe they decide to use Archie Bradley in high leverage situations since he's their best relief pitcher, and then start with Boxberger. So that's something to monitor. I haven't seen anything lately, so I know we won't really hear anything, but it is something to monitor for the season. Definitely, take a flyer on Boxberger late in your fantasy drafts. I know some of them are going on with us, and most people with their standard leagues wait till later in the season. But I think there is a chance that, they could go with Archie Bradley, in the seventh. If there's 2 runners on and 1 out, they throw him in. He goes an inning in the third or inning in 2/3, and then they go to Boxberger in the ninth. So that's for sure something I'll be watching closely.
Yeah, Lovullo already came out this week and said it's an open competition between Bradley, Boxberger, and Hirano. I agree with your train of thought. Lovullo was a smart manager. And I think he knows to use his best pitcher in Bradley in the high leverage situations, if that's the 7th, 8th, or 9th, whatever it dictates. And Boxberger has that, history. He has closed before. People look at the bad numbers with Boxberger, and people forget that he had oblique injuries that they kept rushing him back from, and he'd hurt himself right away. So he hasn't really had a healthy run in a while. So now he should be healthy right now, and I think we might see a little more of that older Boxberger that could be a nice 9th inning arm, and this way you can utilize Bradley and get the most out of him. And I'd hate to see him. I don't want to say he's wasted just as a 9th inning only guy, but to me, I think he's wasted. He's too talented to just be stuck in that role, and I think he helps the team a lot more in those high leverage spots, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I completely agree. My third one, this may be sort of a hot take, but not really. Let's call it a lukewarm take. Will they trade Paul Goldschmidt? And the reason why I asked that is because I don't think anyone last year, and if you did, you're lying, I think, because nobody thought they were going to win 93 games. I mean, just nobody. They were coming off that, signing Greinke, trading Dansby Swanson for Shelby Miller, who's probably out this whole year, and they, and Enciarte, and they thought they lost that trade, and they still probably will. But they figured it out. They got a good rotation, strong lineup. They lost JD Martinez, which is huge. Replacing with Steven Souza, who isn't awful, but won't be the same player at the plate. If things don't go right, I just don't think it would be out of the question that they'd trade him at the deadline and get what you can for him. He's 30 years old. Not that that's old, but he's got an option year left on this deal after at $14 million. He took a team-friendly 5-year deal and wants to get paid. I really believe that he's going to go, obviously, for that contract. I don't think he's an Evan Longoria or Ryan Braun who's going to take a team-friendly deal and stay in Arizona. I do think he's going to go get paid. And now they also took at the 7th pick last year, Pavin Smith from Virginia, first baseman. He's ready to go probably in 2 years. I mean, he started in low A last year. He is 22 years old. He could move fast. And Mike Hazen's a smart guy, so he has to look at the big picture. I'm not sure they'll be able to pay the money that Goldschmidt needs unless he takes a team-friendly deal. So if you want to maximize his value and maybe things don't go the way that they think they're going with the Giants back and the Rockies still there, the Cardinals and the Brewers, the Mets as well, maybe they look to trading him at the deadline if the price is right.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. We talked last year, they were mentioning Greinke and Pollock, and those guys are up for grabs. So it'll be something worth keeping an eye on, because if they're out of it, they need to rebuild. Their system's not great by any means, as you talked about. And Goldie, I don't see him signing back with Arizona unless they open up the pocketbooks, which they haven't really shown they wanted to, but maybe they did with Greinke. So maybe there's an option there. But the fact that they still are going to owe Greinke for a while, it's going to be tough to pay Paul. And I know they want to keep Goldie there, and he probably would like to stay there. He seems like a good guy. I don't know him, but you think he might want to. Then again, he's from Texas, and the Rangers might have some money freeing up here in a few years with some of those older guys we talked about. So Goldie in Texas could be interesting. You put Gallo at DH all the time, or teaching to play a corner outfield spot. It's a conversation for another day, but that could be interesting. But yeah, Goldie definitely could be traded, and he could definitely bring back a ton, which is Captain Obvious.
Yep, agreed.
All right, let's get into the Colorado Rockies. Surprised wild card team last year, 87-75, over-under of 82. In 2017, they spent a lot of money on their bullpen, and they proceeded to do that yet again this offseason. They went and signed Wade Davis to a massive contract, made him the highest paid reliever in baseball, which is just crazy, especially after what we saw in the postseason and give us the postseason. So I'm keeping it with a grain of salt. Then they also go and sign Brian Shaw, a good reliever, which I thought some other teams might enjoy. They signed him to a big deal. So now in the last 2 years alone, you have Wade Davis, you traded for Jake McGee, you have Brian Shaw, Ottavino's coming back, who I originally thought could have been a closer. So I'm kind of surprised they spent that money on Davis. Mike Dunn, who they went and spent a lot of money on a couple years ago. It's a very expensive bullpen right now, and you have to overpay to get players to Colorado to pitch. We've talked about that, but it'll be really interesting to see how it unfolds, because these guys need to perform. Otherwise, you're in trouble. We'll get into the rotation here in a minute, but these guys, they need to be the best of the best. And Greg Holland was really, really good last year. and he turned down a deal that I believe was pretty close to what Wade got, a little less. And now Wade Holland's still unemployed. He's not employed right now, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But they spent a ton on this team in the bullpen, which is surprising to many, and set a tone for the offseason when it comes to relievers for sure. But if Wade Davis falters, that's going to be a big oops, and they're going to need these other guys to step up in a big, big way.
Yeah, not much I can add there. You know, they, like you said, we'll talk about the starting pitching, but they went the bullpen route because of what they think, other than Gray, is at the back of that rotation. And, you know, that bullpen is going to pitch a lot. I mean, it just really is. You know, Wade Davis going from Chicago to Colorado, I think he'll be fine. You know, there are some signs there, and maybe he has the Chapman issues that, you know, Joe Madden did to him by pitching him so much in the playoffs where he comes out slow. And you have to think that Bud Black will be a little bit patient with him. But with the signing of all those guys, there are different guys in there that could get save opportunities.
Let's go talk about the offense now. You're losing Cargo, a long-time Rocky. You're losing Mark Reynolds, who had a big year for him last year. You have Ryan McMahon possibly starting the season at first base. Good prospect. Hasn't really done it in the bigs. Hasn't really had a chance. There's a lot to like there. You have Ian Desmond, hopefully for a full year, as he was banged up last year. You're adding Chris Iannetta. You hope Story bounces back. These are all things they need to compete. But what they need most to me is like those are part of it. But Charlie Blackmon and Nolan Arenado had MVP caliber seasons, insane seasons. Both had 37 home runs. Blackmon stole 14 bags. It's insane what those guys put together last year. 331 average for Blackmon, 309 for Arenado. Just a ton to like as expected. And to me, it's almost like there's the one thing of the bounce backs and, you know, Ian Desmond and all that. If these guys don't produce like this offense is in shambles, in my opinion. That's how bad – that's how important it is that they play at this MVP level of 30, 35 home runs and hit 300+. And Blackmon, they've talked about moving him down to the 3 spot. I think he's more valuable leading off and some might argue that. I know his power numbers, he could drive in more runs, but I think when he sets the table and steals bases, he scores so many more runs for this team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they all put it together. But I think it's almost more important for Blackmon and Arenado to repeat these MVP seasons than it is hoping for bounce backs from Story, Desmond, and some of these other guys.
I completely agree. And the one thing to watch out for is obviously Blackmon's on a contract year. Arenado has 2 years left. I mean, that's it. So you got 1 year of Blackmon, you got 2 years of Arenado, and Arenado probably – I would guess, I know Donaldson set the record this year. He's probably going to set it again the next year in terms of arbitration money. You know, he's getting just over $17 million this year. And the year before that, Donaldson at an older age got $17 million. I know he doesn't have the MVP like Donaldson does, but he's going to set that record. And, you know, these two guys are just going to be tremendous this year. They got to hope that a guy like Ryan McMahon comes up and is as advertised. I know he's got a high ground ball rate, but maybe Coors will help him out. They've got Brendan Rodgers that will hopefully be on the way later this year, depending on how Story does. And then David Dahl comes back, and hopefully he can kind of get that, you know, he was a top prospect before last year, and people were targeting him in different fantasy leagues and whatnot. So hopefully he can get back what we thought he was. And get over that arm injury that he had. But those two are going to be MVP candidates. They have to have, and we've talked about the MVP, obviously they have to have monster years to win it, because people not only will split votes on them, but they take away a lot of their offensive ability because of Coors. And fair or not, it's true. So,
yeah, and it's going to be critical. And, you know, you mentioned Dahl, who I forgot about. That's another big piece we could be looking forward to. So I definitely agree with that. And now we already hit on the relief pitching. Let's hit on the starters, which is always a massive concern when it comes to Coors. And it's really different in the fact that out of their projected starting 5, they're 28 years and younger. And then if you look at some of their other guys that made impacts last year, Jeff Hoffman, 24, and Antonio Sensatella is 22. They had a lot of young arms last year. And all in all, they weren't bad. But the big piece is they get John Gray back this year for a full season. He pitched 110 innings last year, 20 starts, but he missed a lot of the season on a freak injury. I believe it was his foot. He broke a bone in his foot, if I remember correctly. And a full year of John Gray is going to be huge. This guy, he can pitch in Coors. He's proven at 3.67 ERA overall in the year. there's a lot to like about, and his FIPS and XFIPS are even lower than that. So John Gray's going to be huge, but then you got to see how it works. Kyle Freeland, the lefty, came on really good, struggled towards the end. You have Tyler Anderson, another lefty. He's been hit and miss, really good on the road, not so much at home. Chad Bettis, great story, surviving cancer, came back, made 9 starts. He had that great first start back. After that, there were some question marks there. So there are some serious issues, as every year, when it comes to starting pitching with the Colorado Rockies. But right now they're projecting it with John Gray, who I have no problems with, but then Chad Bettis, Tyler Anderson, Herman Marquez, and Kyle Freeland. And then you also have Hoffman and Sensatella in the minors ready to pounce at a moment's notice. I really like Hoffman. I prefer him in the rotation over the likes of, say, Herman Marquez or something, Tyler Anderson. But we'll see how that all pans out. Gray's going to have to lead the way and hope these guys follow along.
Yeah, Gray's my man crush. I love that guy. I love, there'll be a couple other guys when we get into the previews that I have man crushes on. We already talked about Blake Parker. I think he's gonna follow up on that year. And I love Gray as well. I even, everyone talks about John Gray, and maybe if he wasn't in Coors, where would he be drafted? I think people hold that against him a lot. He's really not that terrible at Coors, which is the weird thing about it. So a big John Gray guy. They go as far as he goes. If he can somehow be, a top 20 starter, which is he has the potential for, they can go pretty far with the potential of that bullpen as well. And the rest of the guys, you just got to hope you get, number one, you got to hope that they can keep you in the game long enough to get to that bullpen. That's the main thing for the other 4 guys. And like you said, if something happens with these guys, with a couple of younger guys, you got Hoffman, and a couple other guys down in the minors to sort of use that either 10-day DL or give a guy an extra day's rest, which is huge for pitchers that have to pitch in Coors a lot. So not a ton of potential per se outside of Gray, but not awful compared to some of the rotations that we've talked about tonight. Let's move on. We got 2 teams left, Bubba. Let's move on to the San Diego Padres. 71-91. They got a 69.5 over-under. The first question is why the Hosmer signing now? I think when we were talking about it in, where we were predicting free agents to go, I think we both had Royals, and then all of a sudden the Padres came up, and we both kind of, if we could, yell as loud as we can, what are you doing, AJ Preller? What are you doing? Don't do this to that team now. You've got young guys that are going to be coming up next year. You got a nice little plan with Freddie Galvis and Chase Headley to sort of bridge the gap to Tatis, to Urias, and a few of the other guys. He signed Hosmer. Now he can opt out after 5 years. I'm telling you right now, folks, he's not opting out after 5 years. I just don't believe it. I don't think he can get more than $39 million. Maybe he'll surprise us, but I don't think so. There's a ground ball hitter. Last 2 years, he had 25 homers. I just really don't see it. And it really makes no sense to me. Not only that, you should move Will Myers to outfield, and he's not the best offensive player out there. I think Hosmer's I know he won a couple Gold Gloves. I think he's a little bit overrated defensively at first base. And I don't want to hear the clubhouse thing. He's a good clubhouse guy. I know that is important, but that's what you sign guys like Chase Utley for in LA. You sign him to a 2-year, $2 million deal. You don't pay guys $144 million. I know after the Royals signed Lucas Duda, they were putting his stats next to Hosmer and said some team paid this guy $3 million and some team paid this guy $144 million. Guess which team was which? So even though the Royals are going to suck this year, they did fine with getting out of that contract that Hosmer got for the Padres. It's not going to kill their rebuild because they had money to spend, but I just don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, I won't even dig too deep into this. I haven't made my feelings known on this signing, but there was an interview on Effectively Wild Baseball Fangraphs podcast, and it was a Padres guy explaining how they could afford this deal. Pretty interesting thing to listen to. But like you said, it doesn't hurt their rebuild. I just prefer they would have saved that money for something else because the prospects are amazing coming up through the system, and even if half of them hit, that's outstanding. And then you can spend and make it work there. But yeah, the Royals actually did something right, Mo. They actually did something right.
Yeah, and I'm not going to put them out because they did offer him a contract, but it wasn't, to the years and the money that I think it was like 5 years and maybe 100 or something like that in that ballpark, sort of the JD Martinez deal. But yeah, Hosmer's there. He's not opting out. I'm sure he'll be fine, but I wouldn't have given him that money. I think the next question here is for the Padres is when will we see the prospects? Just to name a few, Fernando Tatis Jr., Mackenzie Gore was their first round pick last year, Michael Baez, Luis Urias, Cal Quantrill, Adrian.
Morion.
I'm going to say, what is it?
Morion.
So I would have just said more John because my voice, I'm like losing my voice right now. I know it wasn't more John, but I'm like losing my voice, and it's a long day. So we all know what I am. And then the forgotten guy is Anderson Espinoza, my old guy, who they traded for and had Tommy John surgery, so he could come back too. You'll see Urias, you'll see Cal Quantrill, you'll see Tatis Jr. this year probably. Mackenzie Gore, Baez are on the fast track. They really are. I mean, Mackenzie Gore last year was at A. He dominated. Baez at high A. So you've got 5 starters there if you include Espinoza, and then Tatis Jr. and Urias. They're going to get here quick. I mean, they really are. I mean, I talked about Chase Headley and Freddie Galvis, kind of bridging the gap there for them. The starting rotation for the Padres is terrible. Other than Lamet is really, really bad. They brought Tyson Ross back. I mean, Perdomo is a ground ball guy. He has his hit and misses here and there, but they're ready for those guys. They really, really are. And they're the top farm system in baseball, and the Braves and the White Sox. So I'm excited for that, and he's done a great job, building the team up. And they're going to have another high pick this year to add to that farm system. We just have to see how they execute it.
Yeah, it's coming close. I mean, some of those single A guys will hopefully still be on the team when they come to San Jose. That'll be fun to see. But they're a few years away. We'll see a couple, like you mentioned. I'm not sure how many, because this is a team that will care about saving that money, because there's even some not even in their top 10 or whatever, like Josh Naylor could be an interesting one. That's in Double A. And Luis Urias, you mentioned him. Fernando Tatis Jr., he's in Double A now. I'd be surprised if we see him this year, but you never know, because they're not going to be in a hurry to rush these guys. That's the biggest thing, but because they still have a lot of guys in AAA that can play at the moment. They're not the big guys, but this system is legit. We've talked about it many times, and there's a lot to look forward to there. Their payroll is going to be about $93 million this year in 2018, so they're going to be able to spend even more money coming up. So as these guys move up, they'll lose some money with the Chase Headleys of the world, add another piece, and they can be quite competitive here pretty soon.
Yeah, lose about $20 million or so with Chase Headley and Galvis, but you're going to have in 2 years in 2020, you're going to have Myers going up to $22.5 million. So they're definitely going to have between Myers and Hosmer is going to be about 43. But they'll definitely have money to spend, like you said. And then the last one, again, because there's not much here with their major league team to talk about. I can talk about Brad Hand. You know about Brad Hand. What is the next step after this year? I think, excuse me, we talked about how surprised we were with Hosmer. So what really is the next step? You spent the money on Hosmer when you have a big free agent year coming next year. And I think we both know that they weren't going to get the Bryce Harpers. They weren't going to get the Manny Machados, but they could have overpaid for a guy like Josh Donaldson, at 32 years old, that's for sure. And then a few other guys that are free agents, and then Nolan Arenado's the next year. Maybe Goldschmidt, if he makes it there, is the next year. So you're out of that Goldschmidt bidding with the Hosmer. I just don't think – I think they did it because they have younger guys coming up, and they wanted Hosmer to be bring a winning culture with them. And I don't agree with that plan. So you spent that money with a couple of great free agent classes coming up. Obviously they still have a sense of direction, unlike most other teams. We talked about the Mariners earlier, but I don't get going in the Hosmer direction when you were going in the right direction as it was with the guys that you had. You could have brought a guy like Logan Morrison in who would have filled the need for the next 2 years and probably been as good as Hosmer, maybe even maybe even better. So I just don't understand that direction. So we have to see the next step as they go, the half of this year and see, do they trade a Brad Hand like I talked about to the Astros or to another team that needs a closer, even though they just signed him. It's going to be an interesting first few months in trade deadline for AJ Preller and the Padres.
Well, yeah, and just the signing alone of Hosmer moving Myers to the outfield, like you mentioned. Well, now Hunter Renfroe's back in the minors, a powerful young prospect that you don't want to waste away in the minors. So there's another bat that they could send off for if you don't sign Hosmer and save the money. You could get another year of him and see what he has at least. There's a lot of interesting factors there, but as you said, they're going to kind of keep seeing what they have this year, maybe make a few more trades, get the prospects ready. I'm thinking more like 2020s when they might be a little more intriguing, but it'll be interesting to see how they spend their money. You mentioned the Myers contract will be increasing; they'll lose some elsewhere. It'll be interesting to see how they put it all together, but should be a fun team to watch as they rebuild. It just might take a little longer than we want because most of those big arms are single A, double A right now, so they might take a little bit longer to get here.
Agreed.
All right, last team in the NL West, some team out of San Francisco.
Here we go.
Worst team in the National League, tied for the worst record in baseball. Thank you, Pablo Sandoval, you dummy. 64-98 last year. Well, I said they would have had the worst record if it wasn't for Pablo Sandoval.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I just want to get it out there.
So, yeah, thank you. 64-98. Over under of 81.5. That's already a huge increase right there. And to the Giants' credit, I will say this much. They went out and got at it because I said many times, you either blow it up or you go for it. You don't play this half-ass thing. And they went for it without really breaking the bank completely, which I'm a big fan of their moves. They went and traded for Evan Longoria, and in doing so, they traded Bernard Span, which opened basically – I think we made money on the deals what it came out to. So that worked out well. It definitely increases the third base position for the Giants, considering what was there last year. We ended the season with Panda. We had Eduardo Nunez and a bunch of scrubs over there. It was ugly. So you bring a guy in that's a perennial 20-plus home run bat. 2 seasons ago, he had 36, and he hits, 270-ish. And that's a big increase for the Giants. Plus, he's a Gold Glove defender. Sure, he's getting older. Sure, the salary's there. I'm worried about this year and this year alone right now. The Giants will be ugly in a few years. Like, things are going to get really, really ugly. So we're going for it now. Then they go and trade for Andrew McCutchen, not giving up too much there. Ryan Reynolds and a couple pitchers. So that didn't kill me either. And you get a guy that's he's only going to be 31 years old, people. They think he's like so old because he's been playing in the big since he's 22. Very young, seemed to be getting back to the Kutch of old a little bit last year, hit about 280. Still has 20-plus home run ability. Lots to like there with McCutchen. Doesn't steal like he used to, but that's fine. They want to move to a corner outfield position. Signed Austin Jackson to play center field, hopefully to platoon because he's not an everyday guy. Great against lefties, not so much versus righties. The guy I wanted to start with Steven Duggar, who's already having a great spring training and fighting for an outfield spot, but it'll be tough because he has options where Jarrett Parker and I believe Gorky Hernandez do not have options. 2 guys that I could give 2 rear ends if they even make the team. But that's what the conversation is right now is let's give him another shot. Well, Jarrett Parker can't hit the broadside of a barn in spring training yet again, but we want to give him a shot. I don't get that at all. Thank you, Giants. Let Steven Duggar play. Screw it. And then they go and get Watson to put out of the bullpen, a setup man for Mark Melancon. He used to pitch with Melancon in Pittsburgh where he had phenomenal seasons. When they moved him to a closer when Melancon left, he kind of struggled, went to L.A. He's okay last year. Not his best season. They got him super cheap for a reliever of his caliber. Sam Dyson actually had a half-decent year last year. Melancon back healthy. I love what they've done. I've said it many times on this podcast as we've gone through the offseason. I am pumped on this season. They made moves. They got older. The Giants are always old, so that argument doesn't mean anything to me. Their salary cap is where they expect it to be. They didn't break the bank. They didn't go and get the Lorenzo Canes and all those other big options. They didn't get Stanton. They got screwed on that one. And they also kept Julio Ramos, their top prospect, their only top prospect. So that's big. They still have Travis Shaw. They still have Tyler Beatty and other options in the minors. So to me, this offseason was tremendous. And they made this team much, much more competitive. They improved on one of the worst offenses in all of baseball and made it at least decent.
You done?
Were you hoping for more?
Wasn't sure. You could have went all night. I've been good with it. No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Look, for what they could have done, they got better because they don't have anyone in their farm system other than Ramos. And for the most part, I mean, in terms of elite prospects, they don't have anyone there except Ramos right now, right? Hopefully some other guys in the draft last year can develop and will surprise some people. But
and a big thing, they have the second pick in the draft this year.
And they have the second pick in the draft. So, yes, I completely agree.
Should have been the first. Thank you, Pablo Sandoval.
Well, that's okay. You'll figure it out. So they got pretty much one guy under 30 in that lineup right now. That's Joe Panic. I mean, I know Belt is 29, but he'll be 30 in 4 months. So that scares the living hell out of me in a few years. But we're not talking about a few years, Bubba. I completely agree. I love what they did to get back to where they were without giving up anyone. I've said this many times. I don't believe in Christian Arroyo for anything. I don't think he's going to be – his bat is not a major league bat, so I don't think he's going to be a long-time major league player. And this lineup is better than some of the lineups they've had in World Series years. Whether the rest of the team is as good as it has been in World Series years, that is the question mark, and I'll let you get into that next.
No, and that's the biggest thing is this offense literally – as a Giants fan, this is the best offense I've seen in a while. That's why I get giddy over it. But it's old, and I mentioned that. You mentioned that. This team's going to blow up in like 2 or 3 years at the most. The blow-up's coming. I guess okay. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I don't see the Giants as ever a blow-up team.
They're always a rebuild.
Yeah, a rebuild on the fly though, because I think I don't think you re-sign McCutchen after this year. Longoria is up in a couple years. Pence is done. And then you just got to worry about the Brandon Crawford and Brandon Belt contracts and then Posey, but Posey's fine for now. So other than that, and then Samardzi's up in a couple years. Cueto's probably got 3 or 4. So it's not – you just got to rebuild on the fly somehow. And if they lose all that money, then they have money to spend in the next couple of, really, really good free agent years.
Well, and that's the thing is if they can, navigate the waters right now, and that comes to my second point, is they need these rebounds because they were a 68-win team last year, and it was honestly impressive they got to 68 because as a whole, between injuries and just guys performing horribly, just absolutely bad. Crawford, horrible year. Panic, horrible year. Posey hit for average, but he's about the only bright spot on the Giants. Brandon Belt, serious concussion issues. Great article on The Athletic. If you have an Athletic subscription, which you should by now, we talk about it all the time. They interviewed him. He was battling depression through these concussions. Messed him up last year, big time. Messed him up. So it's a massive concern. I mean, we saw how it ended Morneau's career. Belt's not even a sure thing this year. I love Belt. I think he'll be healthy. I've always been a Belt guy. People have not liked him, but seriously, check that article out. It was impressive to get the behind the scenes on it. Like he was a bad person for a while there, but yeah, he played bad. Hunter Pence was hurt. The center field position was a joke. The left field position was a joke. The third base position was a joke. So there's our offense for you in a nutshell. Bumgarner decides to go ride, motorcycles in Colorado before his start, and we know how that ended up. Cueto had like 70 blisters on his hand, it seemed like. He couldn't pitch. Samardzija was okay. Ty Block, yep, that's enough said there. So a ton of underperforming is the way I look at it. Melanson was bad as a closer in his first year there. There's just mess all over the place. So the fact that they bring this team back that is better on paper, they could easily make a big jump, and we'll get into the predictions later. But, I have no problem thinking Bumgarner is going to bounce back. I am big on the Bumgarner bandwagon. We talked about him in our starting pitcher preview. I love everything about him. I think Cueto will be better. Samardzija's a workhorse. I'm not worried about Samardzija one bit. It's the 4th and 5th spot in the rotation. Ty Block and Stratton. Stratton, I do like. Ty Block can go. I'm fine with that. You can see it, but the problem is I don't think they have much. I'd rather have Tyler Beede starting there personally. Andrew Suarez, nice left-handed pitcher. They signed Derek Holland, who sadly might be better than Ty Block. That's the scary part. That's scary. Oh. Very scary. Yeah. Ty Block can't strike anybody out. I think we'd make contact. It's that bad. So that's the terrifying part. But the offense will be much better. The bench is nothing great, but you bring Shaw up and a couple of those pieces, Duggar and whatnot. This team's so much better, but there are bounce back candidates all over this roster, which really gives me hope.
Yeah.
All right. Point number 3. To me, it's now or never. Like, okay, we said not a blow up, but the biggest thing is Bumgarner's a free agent in 2019. If they do not sign him long term, I feel you might need to blow things up because you said McCutcheon's gone. Longo will be there, but Panic, Belt, Pence, Crawford, the pitchers, it's just age. If Bumgarner can't be that guy to have there with Posey for a few more years, it might be time to blow it up and build that farm system, which has been bad. It's getting better, but still really, really bad. And that's why I feel it's now or never. They need to make a good run this year. They don't need to win it this year. They need to improve big time to give hope for the next couple years, or you blow it up. That's what I refer to as blowing it up. If they struggle again this year, we blow things up.
Oof. So you're telling me that if they're, let's call it 10 games out of the second wild card come the trade deadline, you would consider trading Bumgarner?
No, not trading Bumgarner. I'm talking about trading the rest of the players. If you get now maybe in the offseason or next year at the deadline, yes, get something for Bumgarner if he's not going to sign. If he's going to sign, give him all the money.
He'll sign.
I don't care.
He'll sign. No, yeah, he'll sign.
I think he will too, but some of the discussions coming out of camp lately have not been the most comforting feeling in the world when it comes to Bumgarner.
Well, no other team's going to let him ride a dirt bike, so if that's what he's pissed about, then just shut up.
True.
Yeah, and again, I categorize the Giants as not a blow it up team because I think it's not quite like the Yankees from a couple years ago because you don't already have the prospects that they had, and you might not have the players that they have to get what you need to become them in terms of a farm system. But it's sort of like that where, okay, we recognize that we're not going to win this year, but we can win next year or the year after, no matter what we do, because we have the money. We've got money coming off the books. We can make some other trades, get what we can in the farm system, and draft well, which they normally do. So we can do that and still sign Bumgarner, still have Cueto, a year of Samardzija, and figure it out. And I really think I would never use the term blow it up with the Giants is I guess what I'd say. Maybe for like a 2-month, the rest of the season thing. Yeah, but not in terms of a whole franchise like, Pittsburgh kind of did, like obviously Chicago did last year, and a few other teams to use as examples. But yeah, I don't put the Giants in that category.
The only reason why I say it is because in years past when they rebuilt, they had the young pieces of Crawford and Belt and Panic. They're not young anymore.
Yeah.
So when everyone's over 30 years old, it's hard to reload, I guess you could say, when everyone's getting older.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
That's where it gets difficult. And I agree. They're not the type of team that could go Marlins on anybody. They like to keep their fan base happy. They like to spend money. Like if there's money to be spent, they'll spend it. They'll try to put a competitive team out there. But I think last year was an eye-opener of how big the holes are when things don't go properly right now with this team.
Yeah, you're in a tough situation out there in San Francisco, Bubba. I got to tell you that much.
Yeah, it's fun. So let's get into the predictions for the NL West, the standings 1 through 5. I have it as the Dodgers, no homer Giants, the D-backs, the Rockies, then the Padres. What say you?
So I have it the same, except I flipped the D-backs and the Giants. I still think the D-backs are a better team, with their rotation. The bullpen might be the same, and then the lineup I still think is better than the Giants, which might be surprising to some people because I think top to bottom, they're very, very good in terms of the Giants. They have no weaknesses, where the D-backs down the bottom of the order have a ton of weakness. But Goldschmidt's the best hitter that they have, and then you got Pollock and whatnot. So I still get the D-backs second.
Yeah, and that's I can't argue that at all. I'm trying to keep the optimism with the Giants. And you look at Dakota, they have the Dodgers #1 at 97 and 65, D-backs 87 and 75, Giants 83 and 79, Rockies 78 and 84, Padres 73 and 89, just barely behind everybody, at least behind the Rockies. So it's going to be competitive, as you said. The Dodgers, I'm telling you, when I looked at that, we talked about that preview, they're only a couple injuries away from being in some very big trouble. It's interesting.
Yep. Yeah, it's it. I hope it doesn't happen. You don't want anyone to get hurt, but if they do, I mean that race at the end of the season will be bananas.
Yes, it will be. Well, there's our AL and NL West previews. A little different from last year. We didn't want to give you the 2 to 2.5 hour podcast, so hopefully it's enough in a nutshell. And with other episodes, it'll cover the bases anyways. Next week, we will do the AL and NL Central, which could be interesting. It's kind of top heavy in each division, but we'll get to talk prospects. Any final words, Mo?
No, we got 2 more previews left, and then baseball. I can't even believe we're almost here. I got March Madness coming up. I love college basketball, and then right after that, we got baseball. So it's an exciting time in the world.
You got Champions Leagues. You got March Madness.
Champions League too. Liverpool moved on. We want to talk about that for a second.
I was talking soccer.
Okay, cool. All right, part of my take. There we go.
That started on Dan Patrick's show.
Did it?
Yeah, because Paul is talking in 5 seconds.
Yeah, 5 seconds of soccer. Yeah. Okay. I remember that now,
Yeah. But all right, everybody. Around the Bases, episode 54 in the books. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter at Around Bases Pod. Mo's at Boston_Mo. I am at BDentric. And go rate and review on iTunes. Spread the word. And we will catch you guys next week.
See you.